Today we'll be covering the camera menu on the Alibi Vigilant NVRs. When you first log into the local interface of the Alibi Vigilant recorder, you want to right click on the screen and go to Menu. Go ahead and put your password or your pattern in, and that will take you directly to the camera menu of the recorder. Starting from the top left here, we do have the general camera menu that does show you the kind of status and information of the cameras that are currently connected to this recorder. On this recorder here, I do have a mix of Vigilant cameras and witness cameras. So we do see like the ALI FT20, which is a Vigilant camera, and then some NS cameras that are from the witness line. Starting from the top, I'm really just going to focus on just one of these line items because they're all pretty similar. The first thing you're going to see is you have a camera and then the information here, the camera name. So this is the name that I actually gave the camera, the ALI FT20. Initially, you'll see like a camera 1 there as a default. The IP address of the camera, the status of the camera. So if I hit this play button here, it will show me the preview of the camera. Protocol, which is private, which means Vigilant. And then the actual model number of the camera. This will pull in the actual model number of the camera. If you go ahead and select the cam config option, it will bring up some information about that camera. It'll also tell you that it's been added via plug and play. There's some other options here. If you want to do a manual entry, you can go by IP address. Typically, those two are the most common ways to add a camera. You have plug and play and IP address, which IP address will be if you have a camera connected to a network switch that is connected to your internet provider's router. You can pull in that camera through the network. Plug and play obviously is if you have a camera plugged directly into the back of the unit. That way it will automatically detect and add itself to the recorder. Some more information here. The protocol is private, which means Alibi Vigilant, IP address, port number, username and password, and then the total number of cameras is 1. The extended transmission option is also here as well. Up on top here, you do have a list of the cameras that are added to the DVR. You scroll down, you can kind of get more information on those. It's just kind of a reference there. Going over to the details option, if you go ahead and select that, it just gives you kind of information on the remote camera ID, the vendor, and then the port number on there. If you look down here on the camera 8, I did add this camera directly through the network, so this camera is not plugged directly into the back of the unit. As you can see, the IP address does coincide with my network here, which is a 1.0 network, 192.168.1.180. By default, any plug and play cameras that are plugged into the Vigilant unit will have a 172.16.0.2345678, and then going so forth if you have a larger unit. Back to camera 8, you can see that this is added through the network. It does have a private protocol, which means it is a Vigilant camera. Here's the model of the camera. If I click on the cam config option, notice that these fields are available at this moment because it is a manual entry. So this is set to IP address, which gives me the option to edit these fields and put the IP address, username and password of that camera, and then hit OK. Using the search option here, it will basically refresh this list here, and where the status says added, if you did find a new camera, it would, you would see that camera listed here as an available camera to add to this channel. Using the search segment button up here, it will pull up the default subnet. If you hit the search option, it will search that subnet and show you any available cameras that can be added to your DVR. They would show up here on the bottom of the list. Moving on to the advanced tab, this is pretty useful for Vigilant cameras. Using the cloud upgrade option or the upgrade options here, the best way to do it is make sure that you're connected to the P2P using the Star4 Live account with this unit. If you are connected via P2P, you will be able to do cloud updating to cameras. So if I select this first camera here, and actually I'll select all 3 cameras, all 3 Vigilant cameras, and I'll hit check new version, which will check for a firmware update. As you notice, the one on the bottom here did highlight the blue cloud here. So if I hit the upgrade button, it says upgrade the selected cameras. If I hit OK, it will automatically download the update and apply it to that camera. Moving on to the encoding section here on the top left hand side, this is where you're going to pretty much have the parameters for each camera. So here you'll be able to select each camera from a drop down menu, and below here that will change the parameters for those cameras. So typically you can choose what kind of video compression resolution. This is pretty self-explanatory, pretty normal for every digital video recorder. Bitrate type. If you do have a camera that does have audio, this is where you will enable that audio stream here on the bottom, and more. So if you did want to make changes to any of these options, this is where you would do it. Typically, if you're using a Vigilant cameras with a Vigilant recorder, most of these options on the default settings are going to be optimal for your application. You also have the option to set certain parameters and then use the copy option here on the bottom. And then you can actually select what options you want to copy over to the rest of the channels. As you see here, I can only copy 2 Vigilant cameras. So I only have the D1 and D2 and D8. This is a pretty cool feature here that will allow you to copy just a specific option to these cameras here. Moving on to the left-hand side, we have the OSD, which means on-screen display. And this is where you're going to be able to set up your camera name, which is right here. And then also here on the right-hand side, you can set your date format, your time format, your show time. And then this is where you'll actually, if you select this checkbox here, it will show the date and time on and the name of the camera on the image itself. And then you can also change the font size. I believe there are a little bit more options on the web browser. You can choose the color of the font and etc. But here's where you'll actually, the most important option here is the camera name. I think that's the most used option in this area. People just want to know how to rename this to patio, so you would say. So if I did hit show camera name here, it will bring that green box up, and then I can drag that green box around to kind of put that information there. So if I hit apply, it will put the ALI-FT20 in there in the bottom. And if I drag this around, let's see on this side, hit apply there, it moves that name to that side. On to the next item here, we have the image tab. And this kind of goes over the image quality of the camera itself. So you can do all your adjustments, brightness, contrast, etc. Your image rotation. Image scene are presets that you can use to kind of have, if you want to do indoor, outdoor, or a road scenario, or if you want to go to custom. These are kind of presets that you can use to get there quicker. Most of the time it's probably better just to do your own brightness and contrast adjustments, or if you need to rotate the image 180 degrees or more. Exposure here, this is going to give you some more options on some presets here. If you do see any kind of LED flickering, I would recommend switching between 50 and 60 Hertz to see which one will reduce that flickering or actually remove it altogether. Compensation is the actual amount of changes that it will apply. So let's say you set your parameters, and this is actually, if you increase this, it will increase the parameters. See how it got brighter there and lower here. Day night mode is pretty self-explanatory. This is if you want it to only be in day mode and never switch to infrared, you can make that change here. Day night sensitivity is set to medium. Day night switching is in seconds. How many seconds do you want it to wait before it switches over? The WDR wide dynamic range is on this camera, and here's a level. The higher you increase it, the more it will apply that WDR. Smart illumination here, this camera only has infrared, so that's going to be the only option here. Control mode is global mode. Some of these other options here, overexposure, restrain, it's just going to keep it from overexposing itself. And here's an actual slider. If you're using the manual mode, you can use the slider to adjust the illumination level. White balance, pretty self-explanatory. If you're seeing some kind of discoloration or hue changes in your image, you can switch it to outdoor to kind of combat that. Indoor sodium lamp, which means it kind of brings it more of a yellow tone to it. And then you can also do manual adjustments to there as well. And under the advanced option here, we have a defog. This is just a actual digital effect that will happen. I don't believe it will let me turn this on since I have WDR, but if you do have kind of a hazy image, it will reduce that haze. And then on the bottom here, you have default and exit. If you just kind of made a bunch of adjustments and you don't like what you're seeing, you can kind of hit the default option and it will reset all those options for that camera. Moving on to the privacy mask option here. This is another feature that is pretty common in most recorders. Let me delete this one here. So let's say if this was an area where we didn't want the camera to record, the privacy mask will set up a block over that. So if we hit add area, And I can draw in here just by clicking and dragging. Let's say if I wanted to cover up the picnic table, and I can cover that there. Once I hit the apply button, it will save that, and you can have more than one area that you want to cover up. Make sure that you have the enable privacy mask option and then hit apply, because then it will apply it to the image. Keep in mind that nothing behind this black box is being recorded, so it doesn't block out for the live view. It blocks out for the live view and the recording of the image. The PTZ option is going to be another pretty common option that comes in DVRs. This camera here does have a zoom feature, so if I do use a zoom feature, it will zoom in and then refocus itself and zoom out. If this was a full PTZ, I would be able to set presets and then move right and left, up and down, and also zoom in and out. This concludes the camera menu overview for the Alibi Vigilant NVRs. If you run into any issues or have further questions, please contact our support team. Also, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for future video updates.